I'm Vinnie Politan. The subject of my investigation is the disappearance of Maya Millete, a mother of three who vanished in 2021. She's never been found, but her husband allegedly hired spellcasters to cast spells on her and has now been charged with her murder. Here's the story. Larry and Maya Millete were high school sweethearts. When they were just 18 years old, they married in 1999 and began raising a family. Together, they had 3 children and were living in a beautiful home in Chula Vista, California. But after more than 20 years together, they began to have some marital trouble. Maya was not happy and was getting ready to leave Larry. But before she could file any paperwork, Maya disappeared on January 7th, 2021. She left no note and no clues. This raised a lot of suspicion. Why would a mother of 3 young children just leave? Maya's husband became the focus of investigators who uncovered evidence that allegedly shows Larry hired spellcasters to cast spells on Maya to hurt her so she wouldn't leave him. Finally, after 21 months, Larry was charged with Maya's murder, even though her body has never been found. And as we wait for the trial to begin, there are still a lot of unanswered questions. She's a mother of 3 young children. Moms just don't get up and leave. They don't just disappear. Part of what happens in a case where someone is missing is we find out about this person. In this case, it's Maya, also known as May. And we find out about them after they go missing, so we never have a chance to meet them. We never have a chance to speak with them. So I want you to take a look at this video that she posted on YouTube, because I think you watch this video, I think you get some of the essence of Maya. Let's get to our first question of the investigation, because there's a lot of unanswered questions here. And it's the biggest question of all. Where is Maya Millete? Where is she? Investigators, prosecutors believe that she's no longer alive, but if that's the case, she's not resting in peace yet. Joining me now is Mary Chris Juliet, Maya's sister, and her husband, Richard. Great to see you both. Thank you so much for being here. So much appreciated.
Sorry, it always brings us tears every time we see that video. It's been a while.
Yeah. Let's start here tonight. Like I said in the open, I never got to meet her. The folks who are watching never got to meet her. We learned about her, unfortunately, under all these circumstances. Why don't you introduce us to your sister, May?
My sister's she's a strong, loving mother. She's a great sister, very caring. Her family is her priority. Her kids are her priority. She's a loving mother. She's hands-on. She loves giving. She's a very a giver person. She always donates her time to charity and always, takes care of her family, her children. Very hands-on, very loving sister.
So when we talk about the question of where is she, and the original story that comes out is that, and it says comes out, from her husband Larry, is that she just got up and left. Richard, that is, as much as I've learned about this from speaking with you and researching this case and everything else, that seems like a zero possibility to me that she would even consider leaving her children or leaving her family, leaving you guys.
Yeah, that's correct. She was always the planner in the family. Just that week that she went disappearing, we actually had plans to go Big Bear to celebrate her oldest daughter's birthday. It's like a ski resort here in California. But unfortunately, that never happened. The 7th was when we got worried that she wasn't replying to text messaging. She wasn't replying to Facebook messaging, Messenger. We would call her. We tried to communicate with her, and there was no calls, nothing. So we got very nervous and worried. And that Saturday, we went to go to their house to check up on her. And Larry just didn't. He wasn't very cooperative. He said that she took off on a hike with some friends. But we never got any evidence of that.
She'll never leave alone, and she'll never leave us.
Because there was no communication about her leaving. There was no note. There was no phone call to you guys or to any other family member. There was nothing. It's just all of a sudden one day she's gone.
That's correct. She'll never ever leave us. She's always on the phone with us. We have a group messages with the rest of the family. We always update each other on what's going on with what's going on with our lives. So she's not the type of person that she's just gonna leave, and for her to be planning for her daughter's birthday before her disappearance is unlike her. She'll never ever leave her children. She'll never ever leave us, her family.
Let me ask you this, Richard. If Larry is held responsible at his trial and is found guilty of what he's been charged with, do you believe he will ever admit to it? Do you believe he will ever provide the information that would allow you to find her, recover her, and give her a proper send-off, a proper burial? Do you think he will ever do that?
Anything's possible. At this point, I don't think he would. But I think with time, hopefully, he'll change his mind and he'll have a change of heart and maybe soften up his heart. And I don't know, he's in a very, very dark place right now in his mind. He's just trying to protect himself and doing everything he can to look innocent. But everything he's tried has backfired. That's why he's in the position that he's in now. So I don't know. We pray so much every day almost to give him a change of heart. He's the only one that knows the truth. Him and God knows the truth. So we're just waiting, being patient. There's been many delays with the courts, with the criminal case, but God willingly, 2025 we'll have answers. So we're just waiting for that.
It's been such a long road. Mary Chris, how is the rest of the family doing? This has to be an absolutely difficult time of year with the holidays and all.
It's always been a struggle. It's almost 4 years now, Vinnie, and we're still in the same position. And couldn't imagine again. As I said a while back, couldn't imagine it's gonna take this long for us to even find the truth. But for the whole family, it's been really hard. It's been really tough, especially lately. It's been really hard because, like, our dad, I hope he'll be able to stay healthy and be able to get justice, find out who did this for his daughter. He can stay healthy. But the whole family's just waiting patiently for the trial.
Well, Mary Chris and Richard, our thoughts, our prayers are with you, your family, and with Maya tonight and the beautiful children. Thank you so much. I know you're on the road and you took a moment to speak with us. So I hope you enjoy the time together away from all of this, and we'll speak soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Vinnie, for always there supporting us. Thank you.
Thank you, Court TV.
Thank you.
And everybody.
All right, coming up next, another important question. What was the status of Maya and Larry's relationship?
We've been having, like problems, for about a year.
Weeknights on Court TV.
I'm Vinnie Politan. Welcome to Closing Arguments. We have a big hour ahead here.
Your deplorable actions are unforgivable.
The community still doesn't know how this Boston police officer died.
He can't prove one element of his case.
It was a dramatic day, a dramatic moment inside the courtroom.
What's happening here?
It's unreal. Let me show you exactly what happened.
Closing Arguments with Vinnie Politan. Weeknights at 8, 7 Central. Only on Court TV.
Thursday night, we got into a kind of an argument, and we've been having like problems, for about a year. Kind of like been up and down and stuff like that. But after that, I give her space.
So when Maya Millete goes missing, Larry Millete does an interview with a local TV station, KGTV, and Scripps News San Diego, and in the conversation there, you hear him. He's admitting that they've been having problems. They've been having problems in their relationship. And now we've learned a little bit more about it because there's a video from Maya's phone, a recording she made in one of their arguments taking place. Let's take a look and a listen.
He's been trying to court you the whole time. He's been trying. The pictures from your thing, you guys got really close together on your desk. Always right here, always together, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night. And then you start feeling stuff.
So that's enough for you to wish death on me all the time?
Oh, that's enough that you gradually had an affair since December, and he probably whenever he got hired or whatever, and you got close to him. Oh, he's cute and all that stuff. You're probably the one that hired him. You interviewed
Seriously?
him. You interviewed him.
I did not interview.
You know what I mean? To get into your team or whatever.
Really? Really?
I don't know. What you guys were doing, 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night all the time, and your projects and your team projects, mentoring and all that stuff.
After all this stuff that you're accusing me of,
mentoring.
And this is exactly why.
This is like the mentoring stuff.
This is you said this wasn't going to happen.
No,
and it still happens.
No, but
and then you bring it up every day.
Your thing is like
every day you do this.
It was never
every day
a thing.
You do this.
You always like oh, it was the thing. But no, it was gradual. You guys, he was going for you already. He was going for you because he wasn't happy with this thing. He was going for you. You didn't even see it. You didn't even see it. He was trying to court you the whole time. You didn't even see it. You know what I'm saying? You didn't see it coming.
What's your point? I'm asking you why you would say stuff like that and then you go there and then you want to be together.
And that brings us to our next question of our investigation, which is about what's going on between these two. What was the status of Maya and Larry's relationship? I mean, you clearly heard some jealousy there. It seems that Maya may have had a relationship with someone at work outside of the marriage. Accusations against him that he's very controlling. We've heard that as well. Joining me to talk about all of this, family law attorney and law professor at Emory University, Randy Kessler, and former homicide detective Chris McDonough, who knows a lot about this case and the search for Maya. Great to see you both. Chris, when you're investigating a case like this where a wife and a mother is missing, the status of the relationship seems to be crucial when taking a look at the husband.
Yeah, absolutely, Vinny, and that's what we would call a victimology, right? So what you want to do is, make sure you're processing, day to day what was happening, as far back as you can before she went missing. And that's essentially what the investigators have done in this case, and it reveals a tremendous amount of information.
Yeah, and I want to put this up. This was the paralegal at a law firm that does family law, like Randy Kessler, testified in the preliminary hearing. Take a listen to what they had to say.
As we were talking about it, I asked the question, if there was any history of domestic violence. She said that there was nothing reported, but she did tell me some things that made me a little bit concerned and wanted to get her into an appointment, sooner rather than later. I believed that she needed an appointment within the next 24 hours.
And what was it about what she said to you that caused you to believe that?
She did not want to do the appointment in person because she was afraid that, she would be followed. She had some concerns in regards to the behavior that would follow if it was found out that she was filing.
So Randy Kessler, I can't imagine this is an unusual circumstance where you have someone, they've been together for quite some time, they have 3 kids, a lot of emotion, they sort of grew up together, high school sweethearts, married for, I think, a little more than 20 years together. And now she wants to file for divorce. She's got this fear of filing. She's afraid of what will happen afterwards. She's so fearful, Randy, that she doesn't even want to drive to the attorney's office to have a consultation. Give me your take on that. How common is it? And what are some of the things that go through your mind if you have a woman who's in this state of mind?
Cases like this are horrendous and horrible, especially for the divorce lawyer. This is going to sound crazy, but sometimes these are harder than when there's actual violence, because that sort of does it. That involves the police, there's a break, there's protections, there's a bond in place. But this, where you can see from what she tells you, this guy's going to snap, and we want her on one hand to get protections of the courts. On the other hand, court orders are just a piece of paper. Restraining orders are just a piece of paper. It's a dilemma. And what we try to do is say, let's find a way to get the separation in place physically, simultaneously with when we file. It's a really hard situation. There is a silver lining, right? And we've covered a lot of stories like this, Vinny. I've been on with you a lot, where husband is estranged, hates his wife, wife hates husband, and they hurt not just the spouse, but the children. The only silver lining here is, thank goodness the children are okay.
Yeah, the children are okay. They're doing pretty well right now, all things considered, obviously. So, Chris, you're putting together an investigation. Now you've got information that there is domestic violence. There is a fear of reprisal for leaving this man. We've got the video. We hear the jealousy. We know that something else is going on, and this relationship is breaking up. And at the time that it's breaking up, oh, suddenly she goes missing. I mean, sometimes 2 + 2 can equal 4.
Yeah, absolutely, Vinny. And to add on to that, to dovetail into your thought process there, you know, they went back and they really started to see him starting to unwind around September. And then, of course, you know, as they had these other events, you know, you had Halloween, you had Thanksgiving, you had Christmas, you had New Year's. As these other stressor events start to come into play here, she starts reaching out not only to try to find a divorce attorney, but she sends a message, you know, the night before she disappears to a friend that says, look, I've told him, you know, we're going to get a divorce. I'm trying to keep it amiable for the kids. I hope we can get through this weekend. And that was her daughter's birthday party that they were talking about. So in between that time, he was becoming much more possessive and somewhat, you know, he snapped at some point, if he's the killer.
It's cliche, but it's tragic, and it's so dangerous. Big thanks, Rainey Kessler, Chris McDonough. We've got a lot more to get to. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for the answers as the investigation continues. I'm Vinnie Politan. We continue our investigation into the disappearance of Maya Millete, a mother of 3 young children. All the focus is on her husband, Larry, who's been charged with her murder. But he also has a story to tell. Here's more. Larry and Maya Millete were together since high school, raising 3 children. But there was trouble in the relationship for this young couple. Allegations of relationships outside of the marriage and controlling behavior. But Maya and Larry did not air their problems to many people outside of their marriage. So when Maya suddenly disappeared, there was no obvious reason to suspect Larry was responsible. But Larry spoke publicly about marital issues after the disappearance and says he believes Maya just took off. But prosecutors believe Larry murdered her and then disposed of her body early one morning. As a result, Larry is facing murder charges while the search for Maya continues. Maya Millete still missing. Her husband's charged with murder. Now, before he was arrested for her murder, when Maya was just a missing mother and a missing wife out in Chula Vista, California, Larry spoke to Scripps News San Diego, gave an interview. It was over the phone, but provided a lot of details about what he says happened. He has a story to tell. Take a listen.
The last time you saw her was actually in the house?
Yes,
okay.
Thursday.
So she didn't take a vehicle?
No.
No one saw her leave?
No, but on Friday, I could still hear her, but I didn't physically see her when I got home. But that's like normal too, because we have lots of bedrooms, it's a 2-story house, and, we kind of like, well, I give her space. So, but that's why every time someone says Thursday, yes, it's physically, or, visually see her, but for me, it's Friday night. I can hear her, like, rustling around making dinner for herself in another bedroom. I'm sleeping with the kids in another bedroom.
Okay.
So upstairs and she's downstairs kind of deal, kind of like a roommate thing. It's kind of like giving each other space. Well, sure. I don't need the space. She always wants the space.
Got it. So it was like Friday, and then you left or went somewhere and then came back and she wasn't there, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I left her with my 2 girls because they do their homeschool.
Mm-hmm.
And then I just had my son with me. So when I came back, she was still there on Friday. We can hear her downstairs, like after I'm done giving the kids baths and feeding them and everything. And on Saturday morning, when her parents came by, her door was locked. I found the keys to the bedroom, and I opened it, and she was already gone.
So this is some of the initial information that came out, because he is the husband, right? He is the father of the children, and mom is missing, and he's giving his story. That brings us to our next question. What do we know about Maya's disappearance? What do we know about her disappearance? What did Larry have to say? What did investigators uncover here? What's going on in all this? Joining me, former homicide detective, host of The Interview Room, Chris McDonough is with us, and psychotherapist and CEO of Life Counseling Solutions, Dr. Janie Lacey. Thank you both. Dr. Janie, just listening to what he's describing here, that she wants her space, and they're living in this house, and it's not a mansion, it's a nice house, it's not a mansion, like not even seeing each other, but he's like hearing her, and like he's taking care of the kids, she needs her space, and then all of a sudden she disappears. What are you hearing as he described his version of what was going on in that household?
Well, what I'm hearing, Vinny, as he's describing his version, is that there could be parts of that are true, but it's what he's not saying. It's withholding of information, right? It could have been exactly what he said the night before. He can hear her making dinner, right? So there can be some potential mixture of some truth and then a bending towards his version to keep it where he's out of it, so to speak. So, we're hearing these situations when couples are having challenging times in their relationship. It's not uncommon for couples to have separate lives in the home in order to keep peace for the children, to live in separate bedrooms, to have separate responsibilities, to give each other space, and to not necessarily interact. So those parts are not uncommon when we're looking at couples that are in challenging times, that are sharing space, that have children. But as we're listening to the interview, it could be the things that he's leaving out, or the things that he's bending towards a version that he wants us to potentially believe, is what I'm hearing, Vinny.
All right, Chris, I know you've been out there. Cody Thomas, Cody's on the case here for us as well, spent some time out there. I want to take a look at what he took a look at, and then get your take on this investigation and what we know. Let's watch.
We're here in this Chula Vista neighborhood. This house over here to my right, that's where the Milletes lived at the time when Maya Millete went missing. Now, a slew of events happened at this house between January 7th and January 8th of 2021. So let's run through some of those in sort of chronological order to give you an essence of what was happening between the last time Maya was seen alive and when she went missing. So we'll start January 7th, that Friday of 2021. Maya was seen on neighboring cameras, security cameras in the area. She was seen unpacking her Jeep, getting some things out as if she'd been somewhere. We know she liked to hike. She was seen on camera walking back into their home. Now, this is the last piece of evidence of proof of life of Maya being alive. She went back in the home just before 5 o'clock. She was not seen coming back out. And in fact, at 1:25 a.m. the next morning, Saturday, January 8th, her phone stops pinging to her network altogether. Now, her phone could have been turned off. Her phone battery could have died. Prosecutors may argue that it was destroyed. All right, moving forward. After that 1:30, when her phone stops pinging, around 6 a.m., 5:59 a.m., neighboring cameras again, they pick up Larry Millete's Lexus, repositioning in the driveway, backing into the garage. Now, prosecutors could argue that he was packing up Maya's body to take it off and dump it somewhere. But about 45 minutes later, 6:43 a.m., he's seen leaving the home, and he's not picked up on camera coming back until about 12 hours later, 6:06 p.m., the same day, January 8th. And he says he only had his 4-year-old son with him. He has 3 children. They're all very young, but he says he only took the one son and left the other 2 children at home alone, which is very odd given how young these children are. Now, let's back up a little bit to a story that Larry told investigators. On January 7th, he told investigators that he and Maya got into an argument somewhere between 8 and 10 p.m. Now, neighbors in the area, they reported hearing their children in the Millete's backyard after 10 p.m. Now, of course, that's odd. These children are young, let alone being outside alone at that time of night. Now, prosecutors may argue that they were arguing. He sent the children outside just because he didn't want them to hear what they were arguing about, or because he was going to do something a lot more dangerous to Maya. Now, neighbors also reported that they heard sounds that were consistent with gunshots. Now, the recordings of these gunshots on the neighboring security cameras were taken off. They were given to experts. Experts analyzed the sounds of the gunshots. They came back and said they couldn't definitively say on record that they were in fact gunshots, but that doesn't mean that the sounds still weren't consistent with gunshots. So a lot of events took place here between January 7th and January 8th when Maya was reported missing. Whole lot of events, and some of them in correct order of the timeline that Larry Millete gave to investigators himself.
Okay, Chris McDonough, what strikes you about the timeline? What pieces of evidence do you think are crucial? And what evidence do you think is potentially missing here?
Well, the timeline we now know is between 8 and 10 p.m., possibly as the real key time that the investigators would have to focus on, and they did. And what they did is they went back and they looked at the digital footprint there, and they've discovered at 8:15 p.m. Maya had left a Facebook message. I don't know what the context of that message was, but that was the last digital piece of, proof of life. And then, of course, we get the neighbors, hearing about, what they believe to be gunshots, but that was, it's undetermined, specifically exactly what that noise was. But then it gets interesting right after that, because they discover that he is also texting these spellcasters at about the same time in that time frame, that 2-hour time frame. And the neighbors next door also hear the children outside playing. So that was unusual. It was almost 11 o'clock at night. And so I think those pieces of circumstantial evidence, Vinnie, are going to play very hard into the trial for the prosecution to prove what was going on at that time.
Now, Larry claims he has an alibi, and he told investigators he was at Solana Beach that day, which is about 45 minutes away. We have a map we can show you. But when he was asked to point it out on a map, he pointed to the Torrey Pines State Beach, which is like 4 or 5 miles from their home in Chula Vista. But he also said, Dr. Janie Lacey, that he had his son with him. And I believe the son was about 4 years old. I'm wondering, a 4-year-old, what does a 4-year-old, what can they remember? I'm trying to imagine if they would be able to get any sort of information from a 4-year-old, and I don't even know how you even question a 4-year-old about any of this. What are your thoughts, Dr. Janie?
When we look at a 4-year-old boy, they would have fragmented memory. But if they're in the care and the safety of a family, and maybe there's some odd things happening, but if there's safety and there's trusting of the parent, which is normal at that age, they may not necessarily be doing anything the boy himself out of the ordinary. Maybe he had a gadget, or he was playing with something and his dad was keeping him occupied. So at that time, what they would remember is fragmented memory that's tied to high emotion. So if the son was fearful, or if he was overly joyful, so when they're recalling at 4 years old memory, it's usually tied to a high emotion, and it's usually fragmented. It's not as narrative as if he was an older child, is what we would see developmental wise for a boy at 4.
All right, big thanks, Chris McDonough. Still to come, we know Maya wanted to leave Larry, but how desperate was Larry to keep Maya?
You were able to cast a spell for an accident to cripple or cause bodily harm. Without killing, maybe? If possible. Can you give someone cancer?
Mr. Jeffrey, tell me what happened that night. killed my wife, I guess. I don't remember none of that.
You don't remember the fight with Lisa?
How many times did you hit her?
5.
You don't remember what her dead body looked like laying out there in front of you?
Not at all.
If you were me, would you believe you? Interview with a Killer. Sunday, 8/7 Central. Only on Court TV.
All she said actually is just, be ready. It's going to be a messy divorce. She said, if something happens to me, it's going to be Larry.
Maya Millete's sister, Mary Chris, testifying at the preliminary hearing. Her sister telling, if something happens to me, it's Larry. Well, something did happen. She disappeared on January 7th, 2021, and now Larry's been charged with her murder, but she hasn't been found. There were problems in the relationship, and it seemed that Maya was getting ready to leave. They were having arguments, and we saw that Maya recorded one of them. Like, there were allegations that Maya is seeing someone outside of the relationship, and Maya is going to a lawyer, but is afraid to go to a lawyer. What's happening on the other end? Well, apparently, Larry is going to spellcasters. Take a listen.
So the spell. I'd like to focus on dominating her and for her to obey me. She needs to start listening to me as the head of the household. I no longer can trust her decision-making. I would also like to reinforce intimacy, being nicer and more loving to me and our children. We need her to put us first above all, especially her job and friends. Banish everyone else. Just keep everything professional. Also, banish that phone usage. Is this something doable? Also, please reinforce making her horny for me only. She kept rejecting me and continues to do so. Good afternoon, Lilith. Is there a spell you can cast to incapacitate or make May not want to keep leaving me and my kids behind? Can you make her sick so she has to depend on us for care? I'm just at my wit's end trying to appease her and making sure our family stays whole. She left me again today and scheduled Jeep runs, gatherings, and trips. All of this COVID is killing people. She's taking unnecessary risks. Please let me know. Also, please boost the dominating and obey me spell, please. She just doesn't listen. Please have her not ever wanting or having divorce or separation as an option. Hang her mind now from wanting one. I want her to love me unconditionally and be interested, obsessed, and desire me always, sexually, emotionally, mentally. I want her to actually try and make our marriage work, bind us together forever in a happy relationship. Thank you. Please don't abandon me. She's telling me that she just wants to co-parent, but not as husband and wife. Okay, she's really going at it with me, treating me like a doormat. I'm shaking inside, ready to snap. May is really out of control, and that's an understatement. I really try and stay calm to be the better person, but too much is too much. Lilith, make her realize that we are meant to be with each other. Make her miserable without me. Make her want to sleep on the same bed, please, for all of eternity.
Those are messages that he is sending to his spellcaster, which brings me to my next question, which is, how desperate was Larry to keep Maya? I mean, in one of those spells, he wanted her incapacitated so she physically couldn't leave and would be dependent upon him. Tonight, we have a guest who's going to help us through some of this, who practices spellcasting, teacher of the metaphysical, Miss Aida. Miss Aida, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I want to get some insight from the people who come to you for your services. How common is it that it's a spouse who is having problems and wants something done, perhaps to make themselves more desirable to their spouse?
That is very common. It's very common for spouses or people living together, engagements. It's very common. But from what I've read with Larry's messages, this is way over the top. I mean, it's he wants this and that and that and this, and any legitimate spellcaster could clearly see that this person is severely mentally unstable.
Yeah, and that's...
If I had...
Go ahead, tell me, if someone like this comes to you with that sense of desperation and seemingly unhinged, What are you going to tell him?
To be honest with you, if I were to receive an email or a message like that, I would ignore it. If I were to receive an email basically asking me to please make my significant other love me or want to be with me, yeah, that I can do. But his obsession and his desires, you have to admit, are over the top. I'm very surprised that this Lilith person complied. I'm in shock. And this always screams to me fraud. Anybody that complies to these requests has got to be a fraud.
How common are the requests for the control that Larry was looking for? It seemed like he just wanted to control Maya's every single move, emotion, and thought.
Very uncommon. It's very uncommon. What I get most of the time is make this person love me as much as I love them, or make this person only love me, make this person come to me. But to enslave them as Larry wanted, it's rare.
This is somewhat over the top. I want to bring into our conversation Dr. Janie Lacey, psychotherapist, CEO of Life Counseling Solutions. So you can hear what Miss Aida is saying, right? She deals with folks who come to spellcasters and are looking for help. This is over the top. How would you describe this level of desperation, Dr. Janie?
Well, when we're hearing this level of desperation, Vinny, it can give some insight to probably what was happening in their 20 years of marriage, as we're hearing the control, the possessiveness, the obsession, and him wanting to have that control that's so badly, that would tell me that there probably was some level of emotional abusive behavior throughout their relationship, because what we're hearing, to the point where you would harm someone and rather have them potentially no longer be here if you cannot have control over them, would give us some insight to the state potentially of Larry's mental health and his mindset when we're hearing this type of conversation that he was having with the spellcaster. It was no longer she was a person that he raised children with and loved. It was an object for him to consume and for him to control. And that was very, very unhealthy, and gave us some insight to the dynamics of their relationship, and probably what Maya was going throughout their relationship, with dealing with someone that would have that state of mind at the end of their relationship.
Miss Aida, we have about 20 seconds left here. There's also evidence that he may have sought the help of a spellcaster to take out the man that he suspected Maya was seeing. Do you get a lot of that also?
Yes, I get a lot of requests for cursing and crossing. And I will comply only if it's justified. But to hurt somebody for no reason whatsoever, it's unethical.
Miss Aida, Dr. Janie Lacey, thank you so much for your help and your insight. Appreciate it. Now, there's no way that Maya Millete just packed up and left her 3 young children and the rest of her family, her parents, her sisters and brothers, behind. There's nothing but the words of her accused murderer to back up that story. It's borderline absurd. And that's Larry Millete's big problem here. His wife is missing and he's been lying. That means it's time for the truth to come out inside of a courtroom. I'm Vinnie Politan. We'll keep digging for answers as the investigation continues.